are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday, June 12th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that being said, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers and Haason Reddick not being at Jets Minicamp, the start of Jets Minicamp. And I'll give you my thoughts on it. We'll talk about their situations, why they're not at minicamp, and whether it's a big deal or not. So I'll get into that because I know it's been a topic of conversation these last couple of days. So that'll be how we start off the show. Then in the second part of the show, we will talk about the Arizona Cardinals. I will break down their schedule for 2024, give you my early win-loss predictions for them. Then in the third part of the show, we're gonna talk about Megatron, Calvin Johnson, him talking about his single-season receiving record, and why he talked about how that it's a matter of time before that's broken. So we'll get into that. And who has the best chance of breaking that record? So we'll get into that. Then we'll talk about Travis Kelce, him talking about, his future in the NFL, how long he intends on playing. So we'll get into that. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about Joe Burrow, kind of reflecting on his past injuries. And we'll talk about that as well. So that's the rundown for the show today. So let's get into the first topic, which is discussing Aaron Rodgers and Haason Reddick not being at Jets minicamp. So Haason Reddick, the Jets acquired him from the Eagles earlier this offseason. So with him, it has more to do with the contract situation. And Robert Saleh kind of broke things down for us. He talked about, Reddick not being there. He talked about Rodgers not being at minicamp. They're both unexcused absences, or inexcused. So, and this is mandatory minicamp. And I want to see if the article I have has quotes from Saleh talking about this. So we'll get into that right now. And I believe this article does have some quotes from Saleh. So yeah, this is. I think this is about Reddick. Saleh said, spoke to him over the weekend, appreciate the dialogue. He's in a really good place mentally, working his tail off like we already know. But he's choosing to sit out this one inexcused. So, yeah, that's on Haason Reddick. Then he said, so now this is about Rodgers. He said, Aaron and I spoke before OTAs started. He's been very good in communication. He's been here the entire time. It's inexcused, but he had an event that was very important to him, which he communicated. So that's what he had to say about both players. Like I said, when it comes to Haason Reddick, it's more of a contract issue. With Rodgers, he has an event that, he communicated with the Jets. So they were aware of this. That's why he's not there. Now, because it's Aaron Rodgers, a lot of people reacted in different ways. You had some people reacting like, oh, this is not a big deal. And then you have people on the other side acting like the sky is falling. Now, for me, I like to meet in the middle somewhere. And I understand where both sides are coming from. I do lean more towards, hey, this is not a big deal, but I will say, when you're coming off of a season where your season ended in 4 plays, and the Jets went out and they made a lot of moves this offseason. They drafted an offensive lineman. They brought in a few offensive linemen to try to, shore this offensive line up to protect the quarterback. And, they also went out and they drafted a wide receiver. They signed Mike Williams. A lot of new moving parts. You want to be on the same page. But at the same time, it's like, well, it's only the start of minicamp. And Rodgers was at OTAs. So it's not like he hasn't been there at all. He's been there the entire time. It's just something's come up that he made the Jets aware of. And he's not there at the moment. Which, yeah, in a lot of people's eyes, it's not a good look. I know one person put it as, with all the, the negative reactions towards this, it's Aaron Rodgers' derangement syndrome. Which I understand that because, listen, Aaron Rodgers has been a topic of conversation a lot over the course of the last few years for things that he says, and we understand that. And I know a lot of people don't agree with some of the things he said. There's people that do agree with what he says. I'm not going to get into it specifically because that's not what this show is. But he's a controversial figure. And him not showing up to minicamp, people look at that as, well, he doesn't care. And I know when I was watching the Michael Kay show yesterday, they did bring up something that Rodgers said earlier this offseason, and I think I still have the tab opened up on my phone because I wanted to bring up what he said. Yeah, so this is what he said after the Jets season ended. And he said flush the BS. Now, I'm not going to say the actual word, but he said, anything in this building that we're doing individually or collectively that has nothing to do with winning needs to be assessed. If you want to be a winning organization and put yourself in position to win championships and be competitive, everything that you do matters, and the BS has nothing to do with winning needs to get out of the building. So that'll be the focus moving forward. That's the focus of these, well, it's as exit interviews in brackets. So people are kind of using, I don't want to say people are using those words, but actually, no, people are using those words on social media kind of against him because why is he not here? We don't know what exactly the event is. Some people have their theories, but we don't know exactly what the event is. But yeah, this event that he's going to is important to him and doesn't have anything to do with football. So yeah, people are taking what he said in the exit interviews and kind of using it against him. And that it's looked at as a distraction. Now, the Jets don't view it that way. They don't view it as a big deal. But he's not there. He's not there right now. But actually, my friend texted us in our group chat a tweet. And where did it go? Oh, yeah, here it is. This is from Connor Hughes. So he tweeted, Aaron Rodgers planned this trip when he was still rehabbing. The Jets have known about it from the moment there was an overlap with the release of the minicamp schedule. Rodgers is unexcused because you can't excuse a trip, but not a contract dispute. Haason Reddick. Semantics, but there's no unrest inside the building. Oh, semantics. I said that really weird. But there's no unrest inside the building. The Jets don't think it's a big deal. Not sure why the world is reacting differently. Rodgers missing these 2 days after being at every voluntary workout the last 2 years will have zero impact on what the Jets and Rodgers accomplish this coming season. So you heard that. And then you had someone tweet out headlines full of hot air talking about Rodgers and then call him Aaron Dodgers. And it shows Rodgers' uniform, but he's not in it. Yeah, so that's on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it these days. So, yeah, there's a lot of people making a big deal about it. And my friend brought up a good point. He said he went to every involuntary event last year and his Achilles, went. But he said he said he missed every possible voluntary event in the back end of his Packers tenure and won back-to-back MVPs. Yeah, I mean, look, and I think Aaron Rodgers, he's Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he can miss some time. And especially because, again, he's been at every voluntary workout. So it's not like he was not there at all. It's just he's not there now. But, yeah, I understand. It's a bad look, in some people's eyes. Because, again, this is a big year. And, for the Jet fan, they want to see success. And when they see things like this, they're going to react. Like, why is he not there? Because he was looked at as the savior. And his season ended in 4 plays. So I get the frustration, but he's going to be back, and he's going to be ready to rock and roll. And listen, I hope he goes out there and has a great season. And I had the Jets ranked 1 in the AFC East, which is highly controversial. But I think this team could be really good this year. If Rodgers can play decent at the quarterback position, I think the Jets are going to be good. He doesn't have to be great. He just has to be good enough. So that's my thoughts on it. I lean more towards it's not a big deal, but I understand, hey, you only played 4 snaps. That's a better way to put it, last year. You gotta, build a rapport with some of these new players. And, this is an important year. But I get it. But this was dealt with months ago. It's just, none of us were aware of it until now. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the situation. So let me know what you guys think. Is this a big deal? Is it not a big deal that Rodgers is not at minicamp? And same thing with Haason Reddick. I really didn't talk about Haason Reddick. I just was focusing in on Rodgers. But yeah, Haason Reddick, they brought him in to replace Bryce Huff, and right now he's not there. So we'll see if that gets resolved as well. But let me know what you guys think about the situation. So we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will break down the Arizona Cardinals schedule. I'll give you my early win-loss predictions for them, and that is what we will do when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to break down the Cardinals schedule for 2024. So let's get into that. This is actually the last NFC team that we are doing. We are moving on to the AFC tomorrow, so we'll get into the AFC East. So we're moving right along here with these schedule breakdowns. Yesterday we did the Seahawks. So, yeah, this is the Cardinals schedule. Hold on one second, and here we go. Cardinals schedule right here. And going through it last night, it's a hard schedule. And, I was saying, the Cardinals, they could be more competitive. Kyler Murray's playing the whole year, but, man, it is a brutal schedule. So let's get into it. So they start off going to the Bills. Now, I think this game could be a competitive game. To start out, it's not cold yet, of course. This is the start of the season, so it's not like the Cardinals are traveling there, and it's going to be, they're playing in a blizzard. But, you still got to go across country. And, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think this is a toss-up, in my opinion, but I'm gonna say the Bills win that game. So Cardinals start off 0-1. Then they got back-to-back home games against two tough teams. One of those teams, a team that has really owned them the last few years, and that is really since Sean McVay took over. And that's the Rams. I think that's going to continue here. So I'm going to say the Cardinals do lose that one as well. Then they take on the Lions. Again, I look at the Lions as one of the best teams in the NFC. I think that's a loss. So right now the Cardinals are 0-3. But then they take on the Commanders. And the Commanders, I know when I did my schedule breakdown for them, I wasn't really... I didn't give them a lot of wins. But they're a team that I really don't know what to expect. I mean, if Jaden Daniels has a solid rookie season, then, they could maybe win some more games. And, they've gone through a lot of changes, new head coach, even though I'm not really a big fan of Dan Quinn as a head coach because of, again, how things ended in Atlanta. And, the playoff game against the Packers, the defense was awful. But, let's see how he does now. And, that they added to the offensive line, the defensive line. I mean, problems last year, was the offensive line. And, the secondary was not good. So, we'll see. But I'm going to say that the Cardinals win. So, they improve to 1-3 on the season. But it doesn't get any easier. Because now they go take on the 49ers. And I think the 49ers win. So now they're 1-4. And then they take on the Packers in week 6 in Lambeau. I think that's also a loss. Yeah, this is tough. It's, again, a tough schedule. Then they take on the Chargers week 7. I think this one is a toss-up. I think they could win this game. Actually, these two teams did play a couple of years ago in Arizona, and I think the Cardinals. No, I think the Chargers won. Obviously this is a new year now, but there's no more DeAndre Hopkins, there's no Mike Williams, there's no Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler in this game, but you still got the quarterbacks. I'm gonna say the Chargers win this game. So that's another loss for the Cardinals. Then they take on the Dolphins in week 8 in Miami. I think I'm going to take the Dolphins. Then you got the Bears and the Jets. I could see them winning against the Bears. And you know what? We'll see where the Jets are at this point. I think the Cardinals can beat the Bears. I think the Jets are the better team, so I would probably take the Jets. And then they take on the Seahawks. I feel like they could split with the Seahawks, so I'll give them another win with one of those games. And then I think the Vikings, I mean, it all depends on the quarterback play. I know they played Minnesota a couple years ago in Minnesota, but that was with Kirk Cousins. I mean, you're either going to see Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy. So I'm going to say the Cardinals win. I'm going to say the Cardinals take that game. Like I said, I said they'll split with the Seahawks. Then their schedule gets a little bit easier with weeks 15 and 16. I'm going to say they win against the Patriots and they win against the Panthers. And then, I mean, the Rams, they could split with them. And then the 49ers, I mean, maybe the 49ers have the 1 seed locked up. So maybe the Cardinals can split there. So really, I mean, like I said, I had them winning against the Commanders, the Vikings, the Patriots, the Panthers, one against the Seahawks. Yeah, I mean, that's 5 wins right there. That's 5-12. Yeah, it's just they have a brutal schedule. I mean, again, they play in a tough division. And then you also got the Bills, you got the Lions, the Dolphins, the Jets, the Packers. I mean, yeah, it is a tough schedule. But I mean, they might lose a lot of close games this year. And this is after, because last year they finished 4-13. You know, so I gave them 5 wins. That's 1 more win than last year. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think with Kyler Murray again, they're going to be more competitive. And they were a team that, you know, listen, they even earlier in the season, they beat the Cowboys at home, which nobody expected that. So who's to say that they, you know, maybe they could split with the Rams? I mean, again, I think the Chargers is a winnable game. I think the Jets and Bears are winnable games. But I think, you know, against the 49ers, it's going to be tough. Against the Lions, it's going to be tough. The Bills, I think, could be a winnable game. Because, you know, we got to see how the Bills are now with all these new receivers. Because, you know, you got a rookie receiver. You added Curtis Samuel, Valdez-Scantling, Claypool, Mac Hollins. I mean, again, these are not stars that they added. I mean, maybe Keon Coleman's going to be a star. But, I mean, we kind of know what MVS, Chase Claypool, and Mac Hollins are. But I mean, I think Curtis... Well, they also had a Curtis Samuel, who I think is probably the best out of those free agent acquisitions. And Khalil Shakir played well last year. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. But I think it could be a winnable game. You know, the Bills... Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, the Rams have kind of owned them. The 49ers have kind of owned them. And I feel bad for, you know, with the Panthers because I feel like they're still going to be really bad, even though they made changes this offseason. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but yeah, I don't think either way. I don't think the Cardinals are going to have a good record. But some people think, you know, that maybe they can make the playoffs as a wild card team. But with this schedule, yeah, I don't know. But again, it's only June. Anything can happen. So, you know, and again, they won some games that they shouldn't have won last year. So, you know, that could definitely happen here. But, I mean, just looking at this right now, this schedule, it's not very favorable. So, but that's my thoughts. About 5 wins for the Cardinals. Let me know what you guys think. How many games do you think the Cardinals will win in 2024? So, before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about Calvin Johnson commenting on his receiving record in a single season and, you know, him talking about how, you know, it's probably going to end up getting broken at some point. So we'll talk about that and who has the best chance of breaking that record. So with that being said, stick around And we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about Calvin Johnson and whether or not his receiving record can survive. We'll talk about what he had to say, how it's kind of inevitable that it's going to be broken. And I'll give you my thoughts on who has the best chance of breaking that record. So, Calvin Johnson hasn't played in the NFL since, well, he retired. And I think it was, when did he retire? I think it was 2015, I want to say. But yeah, this record he has had for over a decade. He broke Jerry Rice's record. This was back in 2012 he broke the record with 1,964 receiving yards. And yeah, like I said, that was back in 2012. Catching 122 passes in 16 games. And Jerry Rice's record, this was back in 1995, 1,848 receiving yards. And that stood for 17 years. And this is what Calvin Johnson had to say on his record. He said, "It's bound to fall at some point the way it's going, so it is what it is. I held it down. I don't even know how long, over a decade now." And he also said they want more offense, so at some point it's going to happen. You got to be healthy. You got to play really a full 17 now. That's the key. You got to be healthy. If you could play 17 guys that put up numbers, you're going to put up numbers. That 17, you get that extra game to put another 150 or 200 yards. So, yeah, it's a matter of when, not if, this record is going to get broken. And there's been a few players that, you know, have come close. You had Tyreek Hill last year, but unfortunately he got hurt late in the season. And he finished with 1,799 receiving yards. You had Justin Jefferson a couple years ago, 1,809 receiving yards. And then Cooper Kupp, he came close when he won the Triple Crown back in 2021 when the Rams won the Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to this. It's because the NFL is, you know, adding games. I mean, we're going to get, you know, an 18-game season at some point, which I've talked about a lot recently. And, yeah, that's just going to make, I mean, you even look at the quarterbacks, too. I mean, all those records are going to be broken because, again, more games being added to the schedule. And, yeah, I mean, nowadays it is more of a, you know, a pass-happy league. So, yeah, I mean, at some point a receiver is going to break that record. Now, who has the best chance of breaking that record? Well, I just brought up Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill. I don't think I think if Cooper Kupp was going to do it, it was going to be when the Rams won the Super Bowl. I feel like now, you know, he's getting older, and I feel like now with Puka Nacua in the fold, you know, that's kind of going to hurt his chances. I think, you know, Puka Nacua could do it, maybe. I mean, but at the same time, you know, Matthew Stafford, I mean, who knows how long, you know, he's still going to play at a high level. Last year was a bounce-back season for him. I mean, I think Puka and Cooper Kupp are going to have solid seasons this upcoming year. But, you know, we'll see. But I don't think Cooper Kupp is going to be the one to do it. I think if he was to do it, it should have been when, you know, he won the Triple Crown. But who knows? They were talking about, I think Sean McVay recently was talking about Cooper Kupp being, fully healthy. Last couple of years he's been banged up. So who knows? Maybe we'll see the Cooper Kupp from 2021. I think Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, I think those guys, they're definitely in the conversation to be able to do that. I mean, if Tyreek Hill doesn't get hurt last year, probably gets, 2,000 yards. But he unfortunately got hurt and missed, some time. So that did hurt his chances. I mean, with Tua, he puts up big numbers. Now, if he stayed with Patrick Mahomes, I mean, who knows? But I mean, even with Tua, I mean, yeah, he put up about 1,800 yards. I mean, just a yard short of that mark. So Tyreek Hill could do it. I mean, he's looking for a new contract. Justin Jefferson, I mean, he definitely can. It's just, I think with him, it's going to come down to, how the quarterback situation plays out. But not to say that he's not going to put up big numbers with whoever he plays with, because, when I talked about how he did with, Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs last year, even though he really didn't play with Josh Dobbs that long, it was really, Nick Mullins is really who he played with. He still put up, over 130 yards receiving in some games. So, yeah, I mean, whoever is throwing him the ball, he's gonna get his numbers. It's just last year, yeah, dealt with some injuries. But so he's looking to bounce back. He still had over 1,000 yards, even playing in only 10 games. So, trying to think of who else that could maybe get 2,000 yards. I mean, I think of Devontae Adams, but yeah, no, I don't think it's going to be him. Maybe if he was still playing with Aaron Rodgers, maybe. But I mean, he hasn't done it once. So, I mean, even with Rodgers. I think Tyreek Hill, that's the guy that has the best chance right now. Because if he doesn't get hurt last year, he probably gets it. So, I would say him. And, yeah, so, I mean, we'll see. But, they're going to add an extra game at some point. So, that's going to better someone's chances of doing so. I don't know. Who do you guys think, if anyone has a worthy candidate of breaking the record? Because I think Tyreek Hill has the best chance because he was very close to doing it last year. I'm trying to think of who else. I'm like trying to go through every team in my head. Yeah, I mean, I don't really see, going through divisions too. Yeah, I don't really. I mean, let's see. I mean, the Lions, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jared Goff spreads the ball around. I mean, Jordan Love's going to spread the ball around with his team. Caleb Williams is going to do the same thing. I mean, who I was thinking before is Jamar Chase. If Joe Burrow plays a full season, and T. Higgins is, not on the team, maybe Jamar Chase does it. I think Chase has a chance. But also, Burrow's got to stay healthy. And we will talk about Joe Burrow later in the show. Jamar Chase is one I could think of. But, yeah, I mean, I can't. I mean, yeah, you got the Rams receivers. I think Puka would probably do it. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, the 49ers receivers, I mean, Brock Purdy spreads the ball around, so I don't think it's, going to be any of them. But, I mean, listen, there's a lot of talented receivers, but I don't think a lot of them are ever going to get close to 2,000 yards. I think there's some candidates, but but we'll have to see. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to, again, it's just they're going to add another game, and somebody's going to do it. And maybe it's one of these rookie wide receivers. Maybe Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., they have a big year. Because we just talked about the Cardinals. I mean, Maybe they don't win a lot of games this year, but maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. puts up monster numbers his rookie season, and maybe he gets 2,000 yards. I'm just saying that. I don't really believe that happening, but yeah, I think Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, maybe Puka Nacua. I think those guys. Oh, actually, CeeDee Lamb. Could throw CeeDee Lamb in there. CeeDee Lamb's coming off of his best season. I mean, maybe he does it with Dak in Dak's final year in Dallas, most likely. Apologize for forgetting about CeeDee Lamb. I mean, the Eagles, you got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I mean, it's A.J. Brown maybe, but no, I just feel like, they're going to spread the ball around. They're going to run the football. Yeah, but I'll throw CeeDee Lamb in that category because, the Cowboys, they like to throw the ball too. So, yeah, I could see CeeDee Lamb being a possibility as well. But that's just me. We'll see what happens, though. Could be this year. Tyreek Hill doesn't get hurt last year. I mean, he probably breaks the record. So, we will have to wait and see. But let me know what you guys think. Who has the best chance of breaking Calvin Johnson's record? Let me know in the comments. So, we are going to take our third break of the show now. When we come back, we'll talk about Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. Him, talking about his future in the NFL. And that's what we'll do when we come back. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about Travis Kelce and, him commenting on his future in the NFL. They had media day recently. So you're getting all the, the pictures of, guys in uniforms. And I think that's where, he was making his comments. So this is what he had to say recently. He said, "I'm going to do it until the wheels fall off, and hopefully that doesn't happen anytime soon, but I can definitely understand it's closer towards the end of the road than it is the beginning of it, and I just got to make sure I am set up for after football as well." And I think that's, you say anything else? At the same time, I'm a football player. More on that. I love playing in the NFL. This will always be my main focus. But outside of that, football ends for everybody, so kind of dipping your toes in the water and seeing what you like in different areas and different career fields. I think the offseason is the best chance you can get to try to explore all that and set yourself up for after football. And he said, "Wear and tear me, baby. I'm ready for it, man. Put the load on me. I love being accountable for the men and women in this building and Chiefs Kingdom. I love the aspect of everyone counting on me to try and make that play for the team and just do the right things on the field and better judgment for the team. I don't think that anything from last year put more miles on me, made me less of a player. I think it was, all in all, it was just focus, being my own worst critic and capitalizing in situations that I should have. I really can't put a time frame on it. I love coming to work every single day. Obviously, I know there's opportunities outside of football for me, and I think you've got to keep in perspective. I'm still a little kid when I come into the building." And then he also said, "I know I'm 34 years old, about to be 35, but I have a love to do this right here in the middle of the heat in June. I love coming to work every single day and doing this." So, yeah, sounds like a guy that's, not, calling it quits. Because, I mean, there was some speculation, there were some rumors that, maybe he was contemplating retirement. But that ended up not happening, and now he just seems like a guy that just wants to keep playing, and like you said, until the wheels fall off. And, there were some people that believed that the wheels were starting to fall off last year because Kelce was dealing with some injuries throughout the season. He did miss the opener against the Lions last year. And, some people just looked at him during the regular season and were saying, yeah, that doesn't look like the same Travis Kelce. He finished, under 1,000 yards. Now, only by 16. He had 984 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. Compared to 2022, he had over 1,300 yards receiving, 110 receptions, and 12 touchdowns. But yeah, I mean, at some points during the year, people had their doubts on Kelce and saying that, maybe he's on, his career is on the downside of it. Well, that ended up not being the case because, he ended up having a monster postseason. He had the 2 touchdowns against the Bills, and he also had the touchdown against the Ravens to start off that game, the AFC Championship game. Had some big catches in the Super Bowl as well. Well, he also, nearly knocked Andy Reid over on the sidelines. Don't want to forget about that, but yeah, he had a monster postseason, and no, I just wanted to poke fun at him a little bit because that was funny, because even Andy Reid said it, he caught him off guard, but yeah, it's he had like I said, had a monster postseason, and dealt with injuries to start the year last year, so maybe, and you know what. I think, because of the position that he plays and the attention that he gets, yeah, he's always going to, I think he's always going to be playing, through some sort of pain. That's what all football players have to deal with. But, as you get older, yeah, it's harder to recover from certain things. But, yeah, I expect Travis Kelce to go out there and have another good year. I think if the wheels really fall off, you're going to see him, not even get close to 1,000 yards. But yeah, I still think Kelce's got, a few good years left in him, but we'll have to wait and see. And the Chiefs, they added some weapons, they added Marquise Brown, you drafted a receiver in Xavier Worthy, you want to at least, take some pressure off of Kelce because last year the Chiefs receiving corps was not good. And despite that, they won another Super Bowl. That was probably the worst Chiefs offense that we've seen in the Patrick Mahomes era. And they still won the Super Bowl. Now, you could look at, they had the best defense in the Patrick Mahomes era, so that played a role. But, yeah, the receivers were not good last year. Now, they did come up big in the Super Bowl. Rashee Rice towards the end of the year and in the postseason, he played well. So I don't want to put him in that, with Valdez-Scantling and Kadarius Toney. But, hey, Valdez-Scantling made some big catches in the playoffs against the Bills, the icer against the Ravens on the third down. Did catch, the touchdown in the Super Bowl when the 49ers muffed the punt. So Valdez-Scantling made some big plays when it mattered. Kadarius Toney was just a non-factor. Still on the Chiefs. And we'll see, what kind of role he has next season. But, yeah, the Chiefs, they're going to be better offensively this year. And if Travis Kelce's healthier to start the year, that's only gonna help them in the regular season. But I did want to kind of bring it back to Kelce, and he talked about how, experimenting and, kind of seeing what he could do post NFL. Look at his brother. His brother signed that deal with ESPN, so he's going to be on Monday Night Countdown. They have the podcast together, so you would imagine that's going to. That's probably still going to continue, even with both of these guys retiring. It might be a little different because they're not. When Travis Kelce retires, they're not going to be, with their teams, so they're not going to have as much insight on what's going on, in their buildings because they're not there. But, that's down the line. They'll still be around the team, I'm sure, when they retire. They'll still be there. Just, not as often because they're not playing. But, yeah, you look at that. Travis Kelce also hosted Saturday Night Live as well. Travis Kelce is going to find something. Now, it's funny because I haven't mentioned one thing about Taylor Swift. Because that's another thing, too. You got Taylor Swift, so you could be going on her tours constantly as well. Maybe being a background dancer. I don't know. No, when he retires, whenever he decides to, there's going to be opportunities for him. There's definitely going to be broadcasting opportunities because, ESPN could say, hey, we could have new heights, on Monday Night Countdown and just get both the Kelce brothers. Or he could go elsewhere. He could go to a competitor. He could go to CBS. He could go to Fox. We got to see, if these networks actually are going to want him, which they probably will, because, Travis Kelce is a star in this league. And, also who he's dating. So that's going to have some impact as well. But, for me, it'll be sad when he does eventually retire. Because, again, another great player that you see, you've watched for a long time, call it quits. I know some people are just sick of him, sick of the Kelce brothers, sick of all the Taylor Swift stuff. I get it. And are just sick of the Chiefs in general. I talked about this a little bit yesterday with someone in the comments, But, look, I get it. But it's another great player. He's one of the best tight ends that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Now, the greatest tight end of all time and the greatest tight end that I've ever seen is Gronk. That's not going to change. But Kelce's right up there, of course, with Gronk. I know I did a topic on that. I think I did that leading up to the Super Bowl, was, doing a comparison of the two. But for me, yeah, I think Gronk is the greatest tight end of all time. But different skill sets. Gronk is going to bulldoze over people. Kelce is more that, elusive tight end. But they're both great. I know. I always see. You're always going to see it on social media with debating two players, but I think both of them are great. It's just, I give Gronk the slight edge in my opinion, but Kelce's right there with him. It's just, but yeah, I would rank Gronk slightly ahead. I don't think there's this big gap that, some people will say. There's not a big gap. It's probably a small gap. But that's my opinion. So yeah, Travis Kelce doesn't seem like he's looking to retire anytime soon. Again, I expect him to go out there and have a good year once again with the Chiefs. So we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think about what we discussed with Travis Kelce. So yeah, now we're going to take our final break. And then when we come back, we'll talk about Joe Burrow, him talking about his injury history. And that is how we will end off the show here. So for one final time today, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about Joe Burrow commenting on his injury history, just some things that he had to say, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. So, some comments from him. He said, whenever the injuries start to stack up, your football mortality kind of comes into the back of your mind. So that's definitely something I thought about and something I have had to fight through. And he said he'll be ready to go by the season, coming off of that wrist injury. But he did add that it's tough to say what percentage he's currently at. That's something we're being more proactive about this year. We don't have to be ready to go in the middle of June. We have to be ready to go early September through February. That's how we're attacking this offseason. And this rehab plan and these practices and training camp, we're attacking it like I want to be out there playing in February. You always forget how hard it is coming back from injury. That's every time it happens. There's always peaks where you're like, I'm feeling great. And then a couple months later, you have a couple of days where it's like, man, I'm not feeling that great. In the past, I pushed through that and caused problems for myself. And this year, I'm not doing that. Whenever you fight through adversity and come out on the other side, it definitely gives you a feeling of invincibility at times. But obviously, that is not the case. So it's always a balancing act. And it brings up Burrow's contract that he signed recently, back in September, a 5-year, $275 million contract. And he also said, that's what this offseason has been about for me. It's not pushing through some things I've pushed through in the past. I've always prided myself on my mental toughness to be able to push through pain and push through those injuries. And so that's kind of been my growth this offseason, is taking a step back and understanding my value to the organization and the team. So a lot to say there. And, reading all that, I can't help but think about another quarterback that did retire early. That's Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck dealt with a ton of injuries, towards the end of his career. Well, I don't want to say towards the end of his career, but that's what led to him retiring. But, yeah, I mean, the first couple of years, or the first few years, Andrew Luck, played pretty much every game, but he got knocked around a lot. And then the injuries started to stack up. Like, once you got to 2015 on, yeah, Andrew Luck really just did not play. I mean, 2017, I don't think he played at all. Then 2018 he came back and he played really well. And the Colts finally got him an offensive line, and then he had an injury, in training camp, I believe, before the 2019 season. He called it quits. And, with Joe Burrow, he's dealt with a lot of injuries. You had the wrist injury, and then which ended your season last year. Then you had the calf, which he finally shook off, and, the Bengals looked like they were going to go on a run, but that ended prematurely. And then, you go back to his rookie season. I mean, he gets hurt in that game against Washington. His knee gets teared up. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. And part of that has to do with, the Bengals, have not done a good job at protecting him. They have made moves to try to protect him, but, he is the franchise. And, you don't want to see him go down, because then the Bengals are going to be, in no man's land. Kind of like the Colts, because look what happened with the Colts. After Andrew Luck retires, you had Jacoby Brissett fill in. And, Jacoby Brissett did play well, but he wasn't going to be a franchise guy. And then you went, to Phillip Rivers, and then Carson Wentz, and then Matt Ryan. And it's just, and now you're hoping that Anthony Richardson is the guy, which, in his limited playing time last year, it looks like the Colts may have something there with him. But yeah, for the Bengals, yeah, I mean, you got Jamar Chase, you got a team that has made it to a couple of championship games and a Super Bowl appearance. Joe Burrow is a guy that, if he could stay healthy, I think he should have a Super Bowl before it's all said and done. And we'll see if that's this year. But I mean, he's played, like I said, he's played in the Super Bowl, a couple of championship games. He's knocked off Patrick Mahomes, in the playoffs to get to that Super Bowl. Joe Burrow is a guy that at some point will win a Super Bowl. And we want to be able to see that. But, he's talking about, these injuries are kind of stacking up, and it's hard. It's draining. And that's, again, I bring Andrew Luck back into the conversation. That's why Andrew Luck retired, because he brought it up when he, in his press conference, how it's just he was constantly going through that cycle of rehab and just having to go through all that. It's draining. And that's why, like a lot of players, they kind of just say, you know what? It's not worth it. And it's unfortunate. And you hope that this is not the path that Joe Burrow is going down. And that, it's just kind of bad luck, and he can, he can go on and have a healthy career. But I don't know. I mean, he dealt with the calf, and then two completely different injuries. A calf injury, which, Aaron Rodgers dealt with a calf injury back in the 2014 season in the playoffs. Calf injuries in general just are not injuries you want to have. And now this wrist injury is kind of tricky. I mean, says he's ready to go for the start of the season, but, he can't really put a percentage on, where he's at. So, we'll see how he is when he plays. I mean, I mean, again, hoping for the best with Burrow, because, Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL when he's healthy. And, him and Jamar Chase, what they do together is special. I mean, even going back to the college days, even though I didn't really watch a ton of college football when they were, at LSU. And we'll see if T. Higgins does eventually join them, with his contract situation. But yeah, I mean, the Bengals are a fun team to watch, and that has a lot to do with Joe Burrow. And when he's not playing, I mean, that hurts the Bengals' chances significantly. They play in a tough division. You're going to be battling. I think it's going to be between them and the Ravens for the division. But you play in a tough division. I mean, they do. For some reason, I'm going to bring this up, and I've brought this up a couple times before, but they go to Cleveland, and they just do not. Joe Burrow does not play well in Cleveland. I don't know what it is. He just does not play well there. But you got them, and you got the Steelers as well. I mean, it's a tough division. It's the toughest division in football. But if Joe Burrow is not healthy, the Bengals are not really going to be expected to do much. I mean, even when Burrow got hurt, they did finish with a winning record, and you got to give them credit. But, even if they made the playoffs, they were probably going to be one and done anyways. So, you're hoping for the best. But, yeah, when you hear Burrow start saying things like, talking about his football mortality and things like that, you're hoping that he's not thinking about retiring. I don't want to put that out there, but, if he ends up getting hurt again, does that really start to come to the forefront? And you say, well, I keep getting hurt. This isn't worth it. That's why, again, I make that comparison to Andrew Luck. So let's hope that doesn't happen, because I don't want that to happen, because Joe Burrow is fun to watch. The Bengals are a fun team when he's healthy, like I said. So, but yeah, he's a guy that's dealt with a lot of injuries. So let's hope that, he's healthy this year, and, the Bengals, go out there and have a good year, and we see some classics between them and the teams in their division. So, but that's really my thoughts on the Burrow stuff. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, you don't like to hear comments like that, because it's like, well, are they thinking about maybe retiring? But no, I don't think he is. And he did say, like, he's not going to try to push it. So I think, like, if he's dealing with an injury, he's not gonna push it. He's gonna say, take some time off, let Jake Browning play a couple games, get yourself healthy, and then go from there. Because the wrist injury was interesting, because I've brought this up, of course, as well. That Thursday night game against the Ravens, you saw he had like that sling on, and many people were saying, what's up with that? And he wasn't listed on the injury report. And then what ended up happening? He ended up getting hurt in that game. So it was odd how that all unfolded. But yeah, let's just hope that Burrow stays healthy, plays the full season, and the Bengals go out there and have a good year. But let me know what you guys think about that, about what Burrow had to say. How do you see the Bengals performing in 2024? Let me know in the comments. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the show for today. Like I always say, make sure to check out all the other shows as well on the network. Give the other shows some love. Cover pretty much every sport. So make sure to check everybody else's shows out. From hockey, golf. I made sure to say golf, early on, because yesterday I just brought it up last. So hockey, golf, basketball, baseball, women's sports, wrestling. I mean, we cover pretty much everything. So make sure to check out all the other shows as well. Everybody has been doing a great job. It's fun. So with that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.